Hi, and welcome to Heart Healthy Leadership. We're your hosts, Greg and Angela Frost. And together, we love getting to come alongside leaders and see them grow more authentically into who God has designed them to be. For more information, please visit our website at thewellexchange.com.
It was funny. I was driving the kids this morning to their grandparents' house, and we were doing the prayer that I kind of always do with the girls. You know, we put our hand on our head and our hand on our heart. We just go, I'm in you, and you're in me, and we are one. And today I live from this place. And so they all do it. And then one of our youngest daughter goes, I just love you, Jesus. I just love the angels. Oh, look, all this love is just coming out of my heart. And she's very bubbly as it is, right? So I just was sitting there and the delight of like how they delight in oneness so much. So that was my like sweet little moment this morning with the kids that just like caught my attention that the Father was doing something, that oneness really is that simple. And it's joyful. I don't know, I'm crying. It's joyful how much he enjoys just like us being one in him and him in us. And so I thought that was really, really beautiful, just the awareness of presence and
I love that.
It's so cute. She's
Our
so
kids
cute.
often
She's like
teach us lots about God. Like our kids personally, I'm not saying that as a general concept, but also true as a general concept. Our kids are just, they challenge us in a lot of awesome ways. And they reflect us back to us, which is hard because it's like, oh, that's me. That's my iniquity. We need to work through that in me and in you.
Yeah.
Yep. I love our kids.
And they're not afraid to tell us when we're out of the spirit. That's the other fun thing about our kids is they're like, Mom, Dad, you guys are out of the spirit. Like this is not okay. And we're like, yeah, you're right. We are totally out of the spirit. It's funny how they come from heaven so quickly, right? So they just gauge that a whole lot sooner. They haven't been taught not to gauge that. So
I love it. I love it. Well, let's we're going to take a little bit of time and just talk about something that we've been practicing lately in our own life. And so what that is learning how to be yielded to what God is doing. Something we call practicing the presence. So for me, when Jesus said, I only do what I see my Father doing, or I only say what I hear my Father saying, and we have all these scriptures in the Bible about out of our heart our mouth speaks, Jesus said, or guard your heart above all else, for out of it flow the issues of life. Man may look at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. Jesus' heart was always connected with the Father's heart, and he was always yielded and willing to do what the Father was doing. And so it's a practice that we have, and we realize when we're out of alignment or when we're in alignment in that, because when we're in alignment, we're actually able to be supercharged in things that seem like they would normally draw energy from us. So when I'm participating with God in parenting, for example, like you talked about, what happens is I have a greater amount of love and joy and peace. I'm actually able to father them as the Father is fathering them. And I'm able to be present with my kids, because oftentimes I find that to be one of the hardest things is, you know, the issues of life are there and we're thinking through those things, and it's like, okay, and I want to be present with these people because they're only this little once. And, you know, in life too, like it's in your business, practicing the presence. And this is, it's a phrase I coined last night. I was like, how do I actually communicate this? And it's what I'm calling bi-locational listening. So I am listening to you right now, and I am listening to what the Father is saying at the same time. I am, because it says in Scripture, I'm seated with Christ in heavenly places. That's my current reality. That's where I live. And I'm also present with you in the flesh right now. Like I'm talking to you. So how can I hear what the Father is saying or feel what the Father is feeling so I can do what the Father is doing and say what the Father is saying? It is a really nuanced art form that it just takes time to practice being yielded, especially when we have so much input in our souls. So like there's so much media going in. Well, there's just life. Like, I mean, sometimes with my kids, my 1-year-old Xander, he's like, he's crying or something, and then my girls start to go, like everyone's all at once. I'm like, oh my gosh, you guys just need to chill. Everyone's quiet. Just need to think and like take care of the crying baby. And they're like, Dad. I don't know why all of them want a hug when Xander's crying. It's like, Yeah. Anyways, it's a lot of input, and so we have the input of the day too. We have input of work. We're as things happen in a fast-paced way, we need to settle through the emotions of the day and like actually understand what's happening in our heart.
Yeah.
And to actually functionally do that in real time so that I can practice with God. We're not perfect at this by any means.
No.
But what I'm finding is as we're learning to be yielded to what God is doing, He is aligning the relationships and the time and the resources that we need to fulfill what He's asking us to fulfill.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really that's a kingdom mindset. So what was the scripture that you wanted to pull up here?
Yeah, so we were talking about abiding, right? So I think most people have heard this scripture before. John 15:5. I am the vine, you are the branches. If you remain in me and I in you, you will bear much fruit. Apart from me, you can do nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I feel like we've all heard that preached or shared on social media, or at least sometime in our life we've heard, I'm the vine, you're abide in me. But like, what does that mean? And how does that look in a business context and in a heart, right? So here, can I give a context?
Yeah,
so our culture, and again, we're in North America, so the culture that I see being pushed forward consistently is efficiency. Like, let's do the most efficient thing. I mean, I love AI. It helps us be more efficient with our time. It's productivity. How do you produce more and more and more and more? There's never really conversations about pruning. It's always grow, more, expand.
Mm-hmm.
And results. Like, we're always looking at these results. Mm-hmm. So as business leaders, parents, ministry workers, I find most of our conversations with people, we're measuring success by those things. Am I being productive? Am I being efficient? And am I getting results? And I remember this transition conversation that I had with God of, what if it's not about efficiency? Because Jesus isn't, and when I looked at his life, he wasn't the most efficient minister that I saw.
Stayed in one small region of the Middle East and spent most of his time with 12 guys.
Yeah. I mean, efficiency, wouldn't that be like raising Lazarus from the dead right away and not, waiting 3 or 4 days? He's not the most efficient. He's not the most productive. Obviously, he didn't grow and expand his ministry as fast as he could.
That sounds sacrilegious.
It sounds a little sacrilegious, I know. But Jesus actually wasn't the most productive person. And also, he wasn't results-oriented. He was heart-oriented.
If God was interested in your results, he would do it himself. Because it's like, we use this analogy all the time with our kids. If I want to make some food, it is going to be the least efficient, most messy, poorest tasting results if I make it with them.
But no, it does taste good.
Well, it doesn't poorest tasting of the full results that it could be. Like, okay, so if I'm baking with Angela or cooking with Angela, Angela's a good cook, and so she knows how to season things. But if the kids are like, let's put in the saffron, and then they dump the lid thing, I don't know, whatever. I was thinking of something. We don't? Okay, no. Let's put in this spice or this. Let's put in this much salt. It's so we're gonna add too much salt. I add too much salt. So I'm the child in this situation. But when our kids add too much salt, it's like they've dumped the salt on their food before because they really like salt, and it's like, kids, you gonna eat that? And they're like, no, it's gross. It's like, yes. That if I was results oriented, I would measure out my kids' food. I would sprinkle the right amount of salt that they would need for their diet. I wouldn't give them the freedom to engage with that. If I cared about the result of how things looked or tasted, I'm not going to involve them. But this is the Father's delight, is to do things with us so that we can participate with him. And so part of the learning process in our maturity is being yielded to what he's doing and saying, okay, Father, this is what is going on here. Like, what are you doing? And he's teaching us how to cook, for example. And we can say, oh, that's amazing. How do I make it taste better? Because that's what will happen with our girls as they grow in maturity. Our second oldest, she loves to cook. And you can even watch it already with her. She's like, wants to learn.
Yeah.
And so you pursue that interest, but she's learning to participate with us as her parents in the thing that is the passion of her heart, or one of them. Yeah. And the result of which will be something really beautiful. Now, we never grow past needing to participate with the Father, by the way.
Totally.
Go ahead.
So, here's the thing. In conversation with business owners, a lot of the times they come and they're like, what does God want me to do? Like, and they're asking that question through usually the lens of productivity, efficiency, and results. Like, what does God want me to do to be the most productive, to be the most efficient, to get the best results? And God's like, yeah, no, I'm not really interested in having that conversation. It's not that he doesn't care. He's just more interested in, like, how are you abiding? Like, what does abiding look like? So when I look at business owners, it's like, okay, they have all of this success. They're growing, they're expanding, they're all of this. And my first question is always like, how's your relationship going? How's your intimacy?
How are your relationships?
Yeah, how's your intimacy with God and others going as you're growing and expanding and all that? Because I think something that we have been taught, or there's a belief system in our culture that it's okay to sacrifice intimacy for a season for the external result of things. So it's this ambition of like, you know what, we're just going to hunker down. We're going to sacrifice. I'm not going to see my husband a lot. He's going to go out. He's going to build this business. He's going to do this thing. And we're agreeing that the cost is going to be intimacy with us and the kids. And the more we chat with business owners and the more we start to uncover this with God, that's not his heart. His heart isn't to ask you to sacrifice intimacy with your spouse and your children for the sake of something external, like a business or provision or anything along. And that's hard to hear because a lot of business owners are great at producing. They have a will and a drive, and they love to go after things. I love the men business owners that we have. They're conquerors. They want to go conquer. They want to go do. They want to go build. But it's holding in tension. What's the cost of that? And what happens if your family needs you and your business needs you at the same time? Which one is drawn? Which one are you leaning into?
Well, and really that's where it always goes back to the question that we ask all the time. God, what are you doing and how do I participate with you? Because sometimes we're actually going to need to be called into our business to deal with the thing.
Yep.
Even though our business doesn't last into eternity, the relationships that we build, the things of the kingdom that we build, the substances of faith, hope, and love within the business, those things actually remain. Those are eternal, and so is your relationship with your family.
Yeah.
As they have that relationship with Jesus, we actually have that relationship in eternity, and so everything that's done in love remains. And so how we do things that are done in love is by asking the God of love what he's doing.
Yeah.
I know it sounds so simple, but it's really hard when we have conflicting ideologies or a busy schedule or are exhausted from pushing on all the fronts. I mean, I'm at the age, like in my mid-30s, and we had one of our friend mentors. He's older than us, so he's a friend, and he speaks into our life. He's like, that's the hardest age for most men, because you don't have the money to do what you want to do. You don't have the time to do what you want to do, and there's so many demands on you from work and from family, from all of this stuff. And so it's interesting because he said that, and I was like, I'm really enjoying this stage because I made a conscious choice. We've made a conscious choice to be really present with our kids. We do homeschool. We work from home to see them all the time. They can approach us in the office all the time. If they become a distraction, that's different. We have a boundary with that. But, it was a hard-fought decision because I had to decide to not do things the way the world does it.
It's very countercultural.
And I had to lean in, and it actually cost us financially for a long time because we were building a business, and I wasn't away making money and exchanging time for money. And now we're learning how to exchange time for value and how to create resources to add value to people that are valuable. So we're learning a different economy, and it's a kingdom economy, but it's hard fought and countercultural. And so, man, that costs something.
It does.
To participate with what we believe God is doing in our life. And it's going to cost you something to learn how to be yielded to him.
Because we've been so taught that production over presence is the thing. So when we're sitting with business leaders and we're sitting with people, it's I want to produce. And then when we get to questions about presence, it's like, well, I don't really know what God's saying to me about this. I don't know. I spend my like 5 minutes with him in the morning doing my devotional, and then I go on with my day thinking that those 5 minutes has fueled you for the entire day. But when you think about abiding is a consistent in and out relationship with the Father, consistently communing and understanding. And so let's chat how Jesus kind of had this conversation with Martha and Mary. So in Luke 10, chapter 10, verse 41 and 42, he goes, Martha, Martha, you are worried and upset about many things, but few things are needed. And I always stop there and I'm like, okay, Jesus, what are you getting at with few things are needed? Because Martha was running around like making the food and getting the house ready and doing all these things that were good and productive. And yet Jesus is saying less is actually more, like fewer things on your calendar, fewer things on your schedule, fewer things that you're actually saying yes to. And he then goes on to say, indeed, but few things are needed, or indeed only one. Only one thing is needed. What's that one thing? Mary has chosen what is better, and it will not be taken away from her. And so looking through that story, Jesus is saying that there are so many things that will demand our time and so many areas where we can produce. Like we see this a lot with young families where they're putting their kids in all these programs and all these things because they need a sport and they need a creative thing and they need this and this and this. And it's, again, productivity. What will they produce as an adult? Instead of realizing that production actually comes through presence and abiding. And so Jesus is saying to her, few things are needed. Actually, really, Martha, only one thing is needed. And what was Mary doing? Sitting at the feet of Jesus, encountering his presence and receiving from him.
So I want to be clear with this, though, that doesn't mean any of those things are inherently bad or wrong.
Right.
Like, having your kids in programs and having a busy lifestyle, like we're busy. I understand. I feel like busy is maybe the wrong word. Our schedule's pretty full. Business is growing.
Yep.
Our kids are doing fun things as well, and we enjoy that. But in the process of doing that, and these are a couple of different topics that we're going to get into at some point, of understanding the difference between the two trees of like, are we doing this because it's in the business world, it's the best practice, it's a good thing to do? Or are we doing it because this is what God's doing and there's life in this? And understanding that can shift over time.
Yep.
You know, when you gave the analogy that Jesus gave of I'm the vine and you're the branches, it's a real place, but it's a reality, I should say. But he was giving that as a pictorial understanding of our reality of abiding in him. And what did Jesus say about fruitfulness? If you're fruitful, I'm going to prune you. Why? Because so you can produce more fruit.
More fruit.
That's again a whole nother topic that we're going to get off into, is fruitfulness versus productivity and what that actually looks like. But in understanding an overarching principle that sometimes God prunes things because he cares that there's more fruit in your life. And what is the fruit that remains? There's faith, hope, and love. There's love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. And those things are crucial in our relationships and in the cultures that we're building. So God may have you in a season of pruning, and that's the most fruitful thing.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. We came from the church world. We've been in the business world for a long time. And we always believe that this direction is the right direction. I'm going up and to the right. We believe it's a linear path of like, oh, my church went from 100 to 150 this year. We're growing. Oh, my business, I went from 20 clients to 30 clients. I'm growing.
I went from 1 million to 3 million in profit.
And we're growing.
And
hold on. Oh, well, go ahead. I have the example I want to give of our life.
So here's the thing is that if we're doing it in the wrong spirit, which again, it's like the heart posture. So if we're doing it out of that productivity, good practices, all of that versus life and the tree of life and the spirit, the enemy will let you thrive. He will let you keep just living your thing, doing your thing, because when you're pursuing that productivity lens, he's happy with that. because what you're missing is presence, and what it's costing you is the relationships around you. And you probably won't see it for a couple years, maybe 10, 15 years down the road. I see this sometimes with pastors is a great example where they've been pastoring their church. Entrepreneurs too, or even just well-intended people who have raised their kids, and then their kids fall away from the Lord. And it's like, well, what happened? What happened there? Like, I don't know, my son, whatever. The fruit of that is disconnection. And it's hard and sobering to hear that, is that the seeds of disconnection that were sown throughout the 20 years of their formative years is the fruit of them walking away or challenging belief systems and that kind of thing, instead of feeling like they want to still connect in and ask those hard questions together. Mm-hmm. But we don't realize that.
Well, and inviting people into the process of what you're going through too. So quite often, like I grew up in a really healthy environment. My dad had a really strong conviction that work and family were separate. I didn't know what my dad did until I was like 14.
Yeah, I didn't know what my mom did.
Yeah,
until like my 20s.
And your mom was a VP of a very well-known corporation. You guys would know that. My dad was an entrepreneur and one of the most successful in his field. Yeah. And we didn't know.
I had no idea.
And that's well and good, because I think a lot of kids grow up in their family identity is what their parents do too. So it's kind of a mix of like understanding and inviting your kids into this is what mommy and daddy do with their time, and also that's not my identity, right? Mm-hmm. My identity isn't what I do. My identity is a beloved son, a beloved bride of Jesus, and a beloved friend. And out of that place, I get to love you guys, and I get to love our clients, and I get to love our community. And when my kids understand that, I can invite them in, and they understand Daddy has some work to do, Mommy has some work to do, and there's a boundary, but there's not a mystery around it. Yeah. And so there actually came a point with my dad where he was going through some tough stuff at work, and I was like, "Okay, Dad, this boundary that you created, which was super healthy, by the way, that like the mentor that he had, my dad was in the insurance world when he first started, and insurance is usually evenings and weekends because you're meeting with people in their spare time, and this mentor my dad had was like, Rob, you have a young family, and I don't want you to fall prey to what all these other guys have fallen prey to. So I'm not going to hire you. And he's like, yes, you are. And this guy's like, fine. If you're working for me, it's 9 to 4:30 Monday to Friday. That's it. You can't work evenings and weekends. That's my rule. And my dad said, awesome. And then he doubled in the first year he worked, he doubled the sales record of the company. And that was the boundary that he set. And then the boundary that he set past that was when he was driving home, putting work down, picking up family. And I always felt like it was a priority. So it was actually really healthy to see modeled that this is the value of family. And so we're learning based off of that foundation of like, okay, how do we welcome our kids and integrate them to some degree in that, because we my dad's business associates and stuff too, but how do we welcome our kids into that, because we work from home, but also not make sure that's their identity, right? Yep. But I want to circle back to yieldedness. It was about a year ago, actually, last March. It was end of February, actually. I think it was February 27th. I heard God. I was just doing the dishes or something. Usually I hear God speak a promise to me, something significant, when I'm doing something that's not holy in my mindset, or like occupying my spiritual mindset, just doing something. And I heard him whisper to me that March is the month of miracles. And I was like, yes, amen. We're really tight for cash. We had I think 10 or 11 clients, maybe even 9. We had no clients. I was trying to do things outside of that because I didn't have faith that this business would actually be something that would provide for us. And that was the whole journey God brought me on last year. And then March hits, and I have the faith because the Father spoke to me. March is the month of miracles, that this is going to be a month of miracles. So I started writing up on a whiteboard all of the miracles that God had provided. And then we lost 5 clients that month. And historically, I would have believed that we're done. This is it. We're done. There's nothing here. But instead, I had the faith to understand that this is what God was doing. He was pruning us for more fruit. And that has resulted in this last year being exponential growth for us, and we're looking at scaling now. But that was because we decided to abide. We decided to remain connected to what Jesus was doing, in spite of the evidence that it was not a linear path of growth forward. God's done a lot in my heart in that process. I feel like I'm always catching up to Angela. Angela's very prophetic.
Not
So
true.
I know. But there was a lot God had to do in my heart in that process. And so as a business owner, and as someone who's, a father and called to minister in the business world and in the political arena and wherever God leads us past that, my job is to learn how to be yielded to Him in every situation, because what we're learning now is Satan will tempt you with good opportunities too.
Yeah.
It's not just the challenging stuff that, like the Job situations that'll take us out. It's Satan saying to Jesus, "I'll give you all the kingdoms of the world," and that can really tempt someone's heart.
Yeah.
And take them out. But Jesus said, "That's not your business. That's my Father's business, and I'm going to do what He's doing."
So here's like a key sign, if you're a business owner, that perhaps you're focusing more on productivity than presence. And again, this is not a fault. This is just, I might be out of alignment. Is if you have a hard time actually being still and getting into the presence of either the person right in front of you or the presence of the Father. And the reason why I say that is we've sat with a lot of business owners where you can tell when someone is like half checked out from a meeting and their brain is somewhere else and they're thinking about all these other things. And then the fruit of that is whatever was happening in the coaching session or whatever, there's just nothing that comes of it because, again, they're not present in the moment. And I think productivity robs us of presence, and we need to realize that God's presence is with us when we're meeting with another person, because they are also in the image of Christ just like we are, and that God's presence is there just as much as it is focusing on an external thing. And so that's what Jesus was getting at with Martha versus Mary. Is Martha was running around doing all of the productive, culturally responsible things. She was cleaning the house, she was making food, making sure her guests had snacks and all of these things. And Mary was sitting there just being present and realizing that the person in front of me didn't need a snack or didn't need me running around making sure my house looked great or whatever. The person right in front of me was inviting me to be fully present with Him. And Jesus was not, and again, He wasn't faulting Martha for being busy with good, productive things. It's just Martha thought she was doing the good things for Jesus, and Mary sat there and was present with Jesus. And it's just a small realignment thing.
And we can be present with Jesus in making the snacks and cleaning the house too. So this is the thing that we always look at, is it's the action, but it's actually the heart, right? God looks at the heart.
Yeah.
He's talking about David there. Man may look at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. So when we're looking at the heart, what is the heart posture? Am I present with what God is doing? Or am I trying to build something or do something for Him to impress Him?
Yeah. Here's the kingdom truth. I wrote it down so I would not forget. Kingdom truth. Productivity is not the same thing as fruitfulness. And this is where I think a lot of us get hung up, is we judge productivity and external fruit. Oh my gosh, this church has 50,000 people in it. This pastor has spoken at 800 events and all of this. And I'm hearing more and more conversations less about like the big conferences and the big events and the giant platforms, and more people looking in and saying, what's the fruit that's coming out of your heart? Because you can have a platform of 50,000 people and think that you're influencing them for the kingdom, and the only metric that's coming out of your heart substance that you're giving away is do better, be more productive, all of those things. Whereas I have found people with profound depth whose reach is less, but the substance that comes out of their heart is actually the fruit of the Spirit. So fruitfulness and productivity are not the same thing.
Anything else you want to share?
I think that's it for now. Yeah.
Okay.
So let's just give you some questions to ask.
Sure.
Sure. Here's some questions that you can ask Jesus to evaluate for yourself. What are you producing? Jesus, am I working with you or for you? And how can I tell when I'm working for you? Jesus, is my schedule driven by cultural expectations or the Spirit? Jesus, do I feel peaceful and aligned? Or Jesus, do you see me as peaceful and aligned? Or do you see me as constantly overwhelmed and feeling like you're always trying to catch up? Jesus, where are you asking me to slow down and yield to you? And what does yielding look like to you in this season?
Jesus, you just asked how to yield. Sorry, that was the one I was going to go with.
That's okay. That's fine.
And honestly, in all of those things, we can take the context and pull back the question. Jesus, what are you doing, and how do I participate? So, Jesus, what are you doing in my workplace, in my business, and how do I participate with you? Jesus, what are you doing in my family, and how do I participate with you? What are you doing in my community, and how do I participate with you? Because if you are participating with him, you are tapped into the life source. When you're tapped into the life source, you're able to actually abide, and you have a perpetual, infinite amount of energy for the things that you're doing.
Yep.
Because he's doing it. You yielded, and it's the subtle. I think we've talked about this lately. What we're learning is the subtleness of yieldedness.
Yeah. Of
like the little prompts, the little checks that he has, the little things of like, hey, maybe don't do that. Or, hey, maybe I'm over here. Like, and it's not wrong or bad to miss it. That's the thing. We're learning how to be honed in, but it's like a dance, where there's just the gentle push and pull. It's not this big major thing, and you're learning how to respond to that dance, to that little push, to that little pull, to that little whisper, and as we do that, life is so much more fulfilling. We actually experience life and life abundant. Yeah. So thank you guys for tuning in.
Yeah. We love hearing from you guys.
Yeah, we would love to connect with you and hear from you. You can follow us on any socials. GJ Frost is mine, and
ANGEM Frost.
M Frost is Angela's.
Or the Well Exchange.
Just at the Well Exchange. Or if you're a business owner and or have a community or culture that you would like to discuss more, we actually have a business where we help coach people in that. And so you can visit us at thewellexchange.com and book a free call. And we'd love to connect with you.
And if any of this resonated with you, we just ask that you share it with a friend who it might resonate with too.
Yeah.
See you soon.
See you soon. Thank you for joining us today. We hope you really enjoyed this message. If anything resonated with you from today's podcast, we wanted to ask to see if you'd be willing to share it with a friend that you think would also benefit from it. We hope to see you again soon.